Welcome back. Unfortunately, 1 in 3 women will eventually die as a result of a heart attack or stroke. That's why February is Heart Month in Canada, and today is Wear Red Day, an opportunity to raise awareness about women's heart health.
And here to tell us more about this important day and share some key information about how heart disease affects women is nurse practitioner Rachel Ollivier. Welcome to the show. Thank you. We're about to dive into some very important health information, but before we do that, tell us more about Wear Red Day and how people can get involved.
Yeah, so with Valentine's Day coming up, our hearts are on our minds. And Wear Red Day started in 2019 and is celebrated annually on this day to raise awareness about women's heart health in particular. And when we think of heart disease, we often think of it as a man's disease, when we in fact know now that women have a higher rate of death compared to men as a result of heart disease. And in this area in general, women are understudied, underdiagnosed, and undertreated. Mm-hmm. And so with this, we know that, in fact, in Canada, every 20 minutes, a woman dies as a result of heart disease. And heart disease is also the leading cause of premature death in Canada. So one way that people can get the conversation going is by joining the Wear Red Day Movement Challenge, which starts today and runs until February 28th. And they can do so by visiting wearredcanada.ca. And the movement challenge is essentially aimed at getting people out, getting people active, and also helping to raise important funds for education and advocacy initiatives related to this topic.
So I feel like many of us don't know very much about our hearts and how they work. So can you explain how heart disease specifically develops in the body?
So heart disease is generally used as an umbrella term, and it can refer to a myriad of conditions that can affect the heart. Things like heart failure, coronary artery disease, abnormal or irregular heartbeats called arrhythmias. And when we look at the most common and dangerous cause of heart disease, it's a result of plaque buildup in the arteries, which can then impact and minimize blood flow to the heart itself. Another area of emerging research is looking at the effects of inflammation on the development of heart disease. And it's actually thought that this might be part of the reason why we see some of the differences in terms of women's heart health outcomes.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about that, Rachel, because apparently women experience different symptoms of a heart attack. So can you tell us what those symptoms are?
In terms of a heart attack and the symptoms that go along with it, for both men and women, the most common complaint or presenting concern is, of course, chest pain. But when we look at chest pain, for men, they often describe it as more of a crushing chest pain, whereas women describe it as sometimes a bit of a pressure, a tightness, or a discomfort in the chest. And women can also experience symptoms such as left arm pain, jaw pain or toothache, pain in between the shoulder blades, nausea and vomiting, sweating, and shortness of breath as well. And in fact, it's known that up to 50% of women who are experiencing heart attack symptoms will have those symptoms go unrecognized.
Wow. There's also different risk factors for women, correct? So talk about a little bit of the risk factor differences.
In terms of risk factors, a lot of the traditional risk factors that we know for heart disease, things like high blood pressure, diabetes, women are 2 to 3 times more likely than their male counterparts with the same diseases to have negative heart health outcomes. And some examples of that are women living with diabetes are 3 times more likely to die as a result of heart disease compared to men with diabetes. Women who smoke are 3 times more likely to experience a heart attack compared to men who smoke. And we also know that women have unique risk factors that are related to pregnancy. So things like blood pressure issues during pregnancy, gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, all of these things can double a woman's risk of having future heart disease. And that's because essentially pregnancy is a bit of a stress test on the heart. And so it gives us a bit of a window of insight into someone's future heart health.
Wow. Interesting. All right, so we already know that there's never as much research done on women's health issues. So do we know there's certain types of heart disease and impact women more, why certain types of heart disease impact women more than men?
So this is a good question, and one that we're still very much finding the answer to, because up until the mid-1990s in Canada and around the world, women were actually excluded from medical research studies. And so again, this is a gap that we're still very much trying to fill. Mm-hmm. But for what we do know about the differences in women is that they tend to have smaller hearts than men and also have narrower blood vessels, making conditions like microvascular dysfunction more common in women. And microvascular dysfunction is essentially disease in the small blood vessels of the heart. And this can lead to blockages or spasms that can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke. And it's thought that actually up to 30% of women who experience chest pain may in fact actually have microvascular dysfunction.
Okay, so but microvascular dysfunction apparently is hard to diagnose. So what can people do?
I think one of the first things is to speak with their healthcare providers about their risk factors and any symptoms of concern they may be having as well, so that they can have appropriate testing, such as a blood test, electrocardiogram, or any other diagnostic imaging that's warranted. But I think the other important thing here is advocacy, because we know that women tend to be dismissed or have their symptoms minimized by their healthcare providers, and so that can make these conversations really difficult. The good news is there are some fantastic resources on yourheart.ca that can help people navigate these conversations, know what questions to ask their healthcare providers, and ultimately can help make those visits more effective.
Now, we know that diet and exercise are important for everybody's health, but does it matter what type of exercise that you participate in? And can weight training help our heart?
So just like your biceps or triceps, the heart is a muscle that requires exercise to keep it healthy and help strengthen it as well. So with moderate to high intensity exercise, it's something that has, creates demands on the body. So the muscles and tissues of the body are demanding nutrients and oxygen from the heart and from the blood as well. So with that, it's something where the heart is having to then meet those demands by pumping faster and pumping more effectively. So people often think of cardio as being good for heart health, and it of course is. But weight training is also equally as important in terms of maintaining our heart health and having that stamina built up in the long run. So right now, the current recommendations are to aim, if you can, for 150 minutes of moderate to high intensity exercise per week.
Good per week. That seems doable. I thought it was 3 weeks per day.
Yeah, build it in. Build it in, right? Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time left, but what else do you think is really important for women to know?
With this, we make it easy to remember. Know your ABCs and what they mean. And with this, A1C is A, and this is a common test used for diabetes screening. Typically, we recommend it's done every 3 years after the age of 40, but this can depend on your risk factors. Blood pressure is B, and this should generally be less than 135/85. And C is cholesterol. So know your lipid panels and know your blood work as well. And this is important for women as they age, but also just knowing that we can catch things early if and when we're more aware of our heart health in general.
Yeah, great point to end on. Rachel, thank you so much for stopping by for this very important conversation. Hopefully everybody learned a little something. And we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.